certainly make it into the group stage as long as he can actually beat Dream. So we're finally in the game. Let's start this best of 5 for day 2 of Katowice. We're on Lightshade. And in the bottom right, we have the blue Protoss for Team Envy. He's SOS.
And up here in the top, up here in the top left-hand side of the map, we have the red Terran player. It is Good Game Gaming's Dream.
Actually, his first Katowice, and already doing pretty darn well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely not too shabby. A little bit scary when you face off against players like Haas, when you're like, oh no, it's kind of the same way you were talking about SOS, right? People underrate SOS, but then randomly he'll have like really, really good performances. I feel like Haas is that way, and Haas managed to take out Don Rigu, so nice he was able to make it past that first kind of Protoss obstacle, but this is going to be another tough one for him.
It's just a tricky one, right? Like, you actually feel confident against certain styles, and some people do feel confident against the trickier Protoss, but it seems to be the rarer answer, right? If you're like, if I gave you a Protoss who can cannon rush, DT rush, proxy void raise, and as well as have, you know, good macro game, are you comfortable against that? I'm pretty sure most people would be like, so they're good at all 4 things? And you're like, yes. And you're like, no, I'm not very confident against that. I feel like that'd be usually the answer. So I'm sure everyone's pretty terrified of SOS and already getting things a little started with the micro, but there is no proxies. There's no cannon rush for Dragon.
Yeah, that's actually pretty important to know, because I guess this was actually the map that when they played their, you know, GSL Super Tournament match, which I'm sure I'll be referencing a lot during this series. But this is actually the map that SOS is going for, like, Proxy Gateway, and he went for a Proxy Robo that was very, very close to Dream's side of the map, and he was dropping Adepts and Immortals around. Like, it's gonna look like a much more calm game. And I want to note, like, that GSL Super Tournament match, it happened a few weeks ago now, right? And even despite SOS's many, many attempts to proxy Stargates and everything, and he did get a couple of wins in there, he lost that series. Dream won that series 3-2.
Yeah, it's pretty important to note. I mean, it's easy, I guess, to slice up each individual game and say, well, that worked, so I guess it could work again, right? But it's never that clear. And then overall, having a loss to the guy, you might want to just generally change up your game plan. I mean, it's not really any differences in the meta since then, so that's not something we really have to talk about. But yeah, as far as, hey, this guy might actually know the tricks, I need to be careful about it. So Adept actually kind of coming in here, already taking some hull damage. Isn't extremely ideal. Of course, it's not going to get much scouting done. That factory put far enough away, you can't see what it's doing.
Yeah, sniping off a Marine is definitely kind of a little nice beginning, at least, and while the Reaper gets pulled all the way back home as it tries to help deal with these Adepts that are going to continue to shade on around. Yeah, I was going to say, like, if you kill off 1 Marine as just a Reaper and 1 Marine, I'm pretty sure you can just deny some mining time for a bit.
Yeah. Twilight Council and a Robo coming up behind this very obnoxious Adept harassment. SOS might not be DTing yet or cannon rushing yet, but you can certainly still be annoying with these units.
Oh my god.
And Dream's actually dangerously close to losing a couple, but good micro so far.
Now, what's going to be kind of interesting is that the Hellions will be popping out over here. So the Adepts are going to get some nice information about, oh, there's like multiple Hellions being made. You're not just stopping at like 2 or something. So it's not exactly an unstandard thing for a Terran player to do, but it definitely is going to give SOS a little bit of heads up to say, okay, gotta prepare for the Hellions to potentially run by, gotta prepare for the timing of like a medevac or something coming out. And he is just preventing the Hellions from poking forward and moving across the map right now a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's very good scouting and feeling like you're in control of the game, but you're right about that drop. You got to be wary of that around the sub 5 minutes, basically. You want to have something guarding against it. Now 3 attempts coming in here. It's just,
I love this.
I gotta stop.
And think about it, like you saw those Hellions before, right? And then your Adept shade behind the mineral and you're like, okay, if the Hellions were home right now, they would absolutely be trying to harass me and get me out of your natural. So I know for a fact that the Hellions are coming. And guess what? Even the Observer spots out the drop coming and the exact angle. The Adepts can actually just trade versus those Marines, and the Stalkers, are they actually enough to deal with the Hellions?
It's going to be tough. I mean, you really can't have a lot of units in the early game as Protoss. That's why Hellions sometimes work out. Another Stalker getting warped in. Hellions looking for the natural, but now have to 2-shot the probes and to 1-shot them. So you get a couple of okay shots, but then a good warp in to actually block out the Hellions. Still, 9 probes go down.
Yeah, it's really hard to call right now, right? Because that is a lot of workers to actually manage to kill there. But these adepts have denied so much mining time from that natural. And now SOS has all these stalkers around with a warp prism out. He has blink finished up, so he can actually blink up into the main base. And I know we have one siege tank in production, but what is the setup for Dream gonna be over here? He does have another siege tank already sieged up inside of his main base.
Yeah, you gotta be careful about this. Something you want to scout with those Hellions if you can, but the stalkers blink in. Auto turret gets thrown down, but the tank still, of course, getting sniped. At least a couple of stalkers go down for it, but that bunker still not done. This is actually still very, very scary. All of the Marines actually getting target fired. Very nicely done by SOS.
Oh my god, and now the bunker is going to get target fired. Another one of these siege tanks does manage to pop on out, but another stalker warp it happens in the main base, because what's there to actually deal with the warp prism right now? The Raven is also out of energy. The stalkers are absolutely ransacking this main base right now, and SOS just has a complete firm hold on this game, and the warp prism even finding an opportunity to head over to the natural. I am willing to bet it's going to be thinking about warping in some more units soon.
I think so. You can actually break down the bunker at the front now and then take away that, just cautionary measure. The main base is still under fire, but as I said, the natural bunker may be a little bit more vulnerable. 2 more Marines and only 4 stalkers, but the 4 stalkers do one-shot these SCVs. They tuck themselves into a corner and at least stop the mining.
Yeah, and with the stalkers in the main base finally pushed back, it looks like at least there's some mining happening in the main. Siege tank unsieges and re-sieges a little bit further back, so a bit of a dangerous game, but well, if these stalkers can actually hit that tech lab on the factory, he could potentially prevent additional siege tanks from being made.
Oh yeah, tech labs, they fairly quickly, but I mean, obviously, like, seconds are really mattering here, so it would actually be kind of nasty to lose that. Bunker is going to go down. The repair's a little bit too late and wasn't enough in general, and the stalkers now get free reign actually on top of that tank. That's going to go down. A tank on the high ground, adding some of its normal DPS. It actually turns this not into a terrible situation for Dream, but still a very tough one.
Yeah, it's like, I've only lost one of my arms. I still have the second one.
Exactly.
Like, being dismembered, still not exactly entirely ideal. But, I mean, I really have to credit SOS actually in, like, those initial 3 adepts. You can see how much it snowballed, and killing off a lot of those early Marines, it allowed him to get all those big aggressive blink ups into the main base and snipe off those tanks. Like, this is really, really looking great for SOS, but I have to say it's all off the back of that beginning.
Yeah, I mean, that started things out so well for SOS, absolutely, but then it's always one of the tricky things about opening up Hellions against a Protoss if they're going to 4-gate, right? The Hellion Scout comes in around, as I was saying, around that 5-minute mark, which is pretty much as the Blink Stalker attack is getting ready, and the Terran player goes like, oh, shoot, that's all the gateways. And then they have like only a second to really try and respond to that. Their build's already trying to incorporate that follow-up tank because they know they have to be safe in some fashion. But as far as that bunker being finished, right, that's something that you kind of have to react to. And if that bunker was down, the Marines don't die. 6 more Marines maybe can really help out as the snowball effect favors SOS. It could have been stopped at that moment, and it wasn't. So not actually very... like a weird build there from SOS, right? That was actually one of the normal 4-gate blinks we've seen from a lot of other Protosses.
Yeah, I have to say though, like the way that things panned out all worked out so well for SOS, right? It's not just like a normal build order, but like the Observer running straight over the medevac, getting full idea and the exact timing of those adepts shading on in, which I have to credit SOS for, is like knowing the exact moment, like, all right, if you're going for the Hellion drop, like, it's going to happen now I can shade in, your Hellions aren't going to be here at home anymore. Like, all of those things work out really well because SOS has all these things super fine-tuned. He has the responses where even though he loses 9 workers, like, he had the stalkers in position. He was ready for the drop. He just still took a little bit more damage than maybe he wanted to, but yeah.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, the Hellion drop can do such devastating amounts of damage, right? If it kills like 18 probes, for instance, like double that number, then you actually are missing 1 or 2 warp-ins each warp-in round, right? Or you have to wait a little while longer for a full warp-in round, and it can actually hurt the build. But in that case, SOS certainly had enough firepower and enough control as well. Very good decision-making is needed for that attack to work. Obviously good micro, but actually deciding like, this is when I jump on top of the tank, this is when I target the Marines over the bunker, that type of stuff, right? Is actually why the likes of, Parting seems so good with these gateway blink openers, but then other people can falter with it. Well, SOS just sort of, he's pretty good with it as well.
Yeah. Well, The nice thing about this series is that it is a best of 5. It's one of the qualifying matches, and that means that Dream is not immediately just on the edge of getting knocked down to the lower bracket or anything. He actually still has a little bit of time to play around with this series to see how things are going to go, and we are beginning game number 2 over here on Romanticide.
Good. Let's see if Dream can bring it back like he did in GSL. In the bottom right for Team NV, he is SOS.
And up here on the top left-hand side of the map, we have from Good Game Gaming, it is Dream. Alrighty. Well, I do see a probe heading across the map right now, but it could just be the usual scouting probe and everything. I'm just always ready now for SOS to throw up some kind of proxy, because this is actually a pretty, I feel like, well-used map for the proxy Stargate behind those minerals that you can kind of mine out just below the third. Yeah, right there.
Exactly what he did, I believe. It wasn't a void ray proxy, but it was the oracles coming in with some adept harassment. And he might be encouraged to try and do that, not just because he's SOS and likes to be aggressive, but because last game the adepts really did take so long to clean up. You know, it was definitely one of those situations where the Terran's like, I know how to deal with this. Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. Oh, shoot. Like, it lasted way too long. Whereas, you know, usually you would be kind of more accustomed to clearing that up and doing okay with it. But SOS, like, speaking of being aggressive, like that probe coming in from the gateway, I believe, timing, it did put that gateway down in the natural. That could be something where he just chronos out the adepts again, and they're a little bit closer to Dream's natural. But it also now helps against those Hellion attacks that, of course, Dream is capable of doing, and just showed that he is going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely nice to get the wall up when you can, if you know that you're not probably going to be facing off against, you know, a big 2-base tank push or something. But even then, you can kind of try and intercept those tank pushes a little bit further out if need be. But yeah, it looks like we're going to have a pretty normal looking start. We got a first Marine, a reactor and stuff comes on out, but it's also going to be that adept that you're talking about that tries to race to the natural, see if it can deny that natural for a little bit.
Yep, just a little bit of a pause. Feels quite nice for the Protoss and absolutely terrible for the Terran. And it just can't snowball from there. I'm actually a little surprised that Dream hasn't been playing with faster bunkers. I mean, last game his bunker was so close to being done, but yeah, a lot of Terrans are trying their best to not even have to worry at all about it. Then again, they can't just shade behind in the mineral line. But the 3 Marine opener actually does help. This will help that snowball effect that we were just talking about, where the 3 Marines, especially if they kind of were there engaging the Adept before the Adept realized she had to get out of there, really helps out. But now we're talking about just a reactor barracks, eventually get enough Marines, hopefully enough to take on what is now 2 Adepts, should be a second barracks behind this, and a third CC very quickly for Dream.
Yeah, you can see SOS kind of using those adept shades to not only kind of annoy Dream by forcing him to raise and lower the depots a lot, but it actually is using that to buy a bit of space so he can make it his way up the high ground without the Marines just completely ambushing him. So nicely done so far, but it's only gotten really 1 attack off on those Marines. Does not want to lose these adepts because it is really, really nice to keep these alive and just keep your opponent pushed back. But okay, Zombie go. Now SOS is speaking my language. We got a Dark Shrine on the way. Maybe SOS was watching Haas and was like, you know, I think I'm a better player than Haas, but okay. Cast a curse a little bit now. Well, losing the adepts is not entirely ideal, but I was gonna say, you know, Haas did take one of his games off of Dream, and it was off the back of a DT opening that did a surprisingly large amount of damage against Dream.
So it's got to be careful about that. He's not going up to a start point anytime quickly. You know, obviously it's a different build than last game where he did go for a Raven and it would have helped. Well, now his factory's only just now halfway done. So he's going to have to be, you know, eagle eyes on that natural, looking out for a War Prism in his main, that type of stuff, because of course SOS can do the Dark Shrine, and of course SOS could also just not really commit that hard, you know? We used to view the Dark Shrine, even after it's got its cost buffed, like it was reduced in cost, as something that was still very, very dedicated. If it didn't work, you were screwed. Now, it's like if you only warp in 1 DT and keep the War Prism alive, it's really not like the worst opener. That's something that Zest was trying to prove earlier last year, but that War Prism actually was seen by the Marine. That's really good.
Yeah, I like the idea of just warping in one DT and sending it to the natural, because there is a missile turret over there. But he actually does manage to bait a few of the units away. A missile turret already in the main base, so looks like Dream learned his lesson from yesterday.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that it's 200 minerals that you really wouldn't want to have, but it's actually not also the engineering bay sooner than you would want. Like, he's fitting in the +1 as part of his build, so it is only the 200 minerals, and perfectly placed with the help of that Marine confirming that, like, you know, it's a good idea to get those, be in position. Means that SOS is now down and trying to decide, okay, how do I use this still effectively? Because as just a DT opener, it did fail. But then it can turn into more of, like, you know, constantly harassing him with the Warp Prism. It can turn into an Archon drop, which is not as effective versus Terran as it is versus Zerg, since we have all these projectile weapons and whatnot. But it's still something that you can try and do, absolutely.
Yeah, if you can find the area to safely unload the Archons, then you can actually find a surprising amount of damage versus those biological Marines. Because, yeah, Archons actually do quite a bit of damage to those Marines. And then you can kind of zone out the Marines so that your Warp Prism is safe. And you can already see you got a lot of shields to play with. So really, really beautifully done so far from SOS.
Yep, I just needed to get the Archons unloaded. If he had accidentally just willy-nilly ran in with the Warp Prism, those Marines stimmed on top of the Warp Prism, and that's dead.
Yeah.
Definitely gotta be careful. But also good response from Dream. He knew that the Marines would die if he actually engaged, so he tried to save them, bring them back, wait for the rest of his army, which SOS also just scouted. You know, he was already figuring out the build, no doubt, with the lack of, like, factory units and starport units, but then I actually got the Observer in there for just a hot second, saw the big bio army, and I'm sure has figured out also the 3rd CC. So they understand each other at this point, I would say.
Yeah. Nice little opportunity to come back in over here with the Archon harass. Just denying a bit of mining time. I mean, you can see all the SCVs pulled off of gas and everything. Just being annoying, because behind this, he is trying to get that 3rd base saturated. He's getting up his Colossus count and everything. So I think that SOS should be in a good position tech-wise, but I'm wondering, I see a handful of units moving out over here already for Dream. So SOS has got to be prepared for the angle that things come in from. Ooh, the Marines.
Yeah, okay, good control. Not just letting his Warp Prism fly back home without paying attention to it. That is still very important. He can recall that and have 2 Archons on the front lines. And he could also use it to, you know, bother Dream so that Dream doesn't have all of his attention on the front lines. So it's still very, very important. If Dream picked that off immediately and was able to just rush across the field, no worry in his mind, SOS is still pretty weak. He's still adding on these really important technologies like, you know, Colossus +1, Thermal Lance and Blink. Like, everything is coming in about 20 to 30 seconds, and he needs to buy that time to really feel safe.
Oh man, I love the positioning of the Stalkers in the main base over here for SOS, because he doesn't quite have Blink yet, and that makes it a lot harder for him to defend both his 3rd and his main base if there is one of those drops coming forward. But he left a lot of his ground units like the Colossus, the Zealots and everything over by the 3rd, but then having the Stalkers in the main base is really nice, because yeah, you can help deal with the drops until Blink finishes, and then once Blink finishes, if there's a push at the front, you can move them back over to the low ground pretty easily.
SOS seems properly set up. He's certainly got a big enough army supply, a good enough army supply as well, to take care of Dream's army, as long as it's not you know, totally out of position. And that is right now what is critical, having things in position. Blink Stalkers in the main, Zealots in front of the Colossus, right? Don't let them get AI'd somewhere. And then SOS can maybe start working on some more of that map presence. He does have some observers out there. Actually, a pretty well-placed one right there.
Yeah, spotted out a large chunk of the army over there. Hallucinating Phoenix also just keeping tabs on things. Actually does spot the, I believe, 4th base that was being built in that natural expansion. So kind of has an idea. Yeah, I should probably be thinking about my own, and starts up one of my favorite upgrades, the Shadow Strain upgrade for those DT run-bys.
Gosh, this feels like a PvP. It's such fast. It's like it's a macro game. You know, 4 bases is coming in, but that's still pretty darn fast. ET Blink. Stalkers in the main base having a little bit of trouble. Like, it's a fully unloaded medevac, but enough are there. It's no problem. SOS about to have equal upgrades in just 8 seconds as Dream is sharking around. That actually looks like an army he could take on, but he's not going to try. He's actually going to load up and then hit the main even harder, it looks like.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty problematic for, you know, 4 Stalkers, maybe 5 Stalkers. It's going to be 1 Stalker per medevac zombie grab, and those are just not numbers that you really want, especially with, wow, SOS is moving out, and a Marine even spots the army moving out. I feel like this would be the time to go, right?
I would think so as well. I thought that was perfect, but he must be waiting for enough of an army to also hit the 4th base. I mean, like, literally his entire army is in those medevacs waiting, so It's going to take a while. That is his plan, but being extraordinarily patient, I got to figure he's also trying to like zoom in to see if an observer is seeing those medevacs too, because it'd be so awkward if it was. Then SOS, I think, would be the one to go across the map, but yeah, he's not being seen, so a lot of patience from Dream.
Yeah, very, very patient.
Trigger.
It's like he's like, oh wait, hold on, I have 2 minutes until my 2-2 finishes. Let me wait here for a second.
Yeah. Let me just have 5 medevacs worth of units, just like not doing anything right now, but it's okay.
Yeah. I wonder if he thinks that there's an observer there or something, and he thinks like by having these here, you can't dislodge them right now, but it's forcing you to also stay at home. It's like applying pressure by like forcing your opponent to react a little bit. Well, this is gonna force a reaction for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say it might be threatening the base race, right, if it was the case, but he once again saw the army move out, and this time he actually pulled the trigger. Medevacs fully unloaded in the main base, tons of production to take down. So far, pylons being taken down first and foremost, a lot of gateways being depowered, actually. As another attack hits that third base, Dream is looking for a little bit more than just those pylons, maybe some tech structures, maybe the upgrades, but you actually have SOS also attacking the Dream's third base.
Yeah, manages to kill off 9 workers before the reinforcements do manage to push back those zealots, but this Bioforce is still getting a lot of damage done over here. The Colossus is doing some really, really good work on some of these Marines, but the Marauders are starting to close the distance on it. It gets focus fire down, and wow, I just have to say, SOS is taking so much damage in the main base. He's gonna lose the pylon right before 3-3 finishes. He's gonna lose +3 weapons and could lose +3 armor right after.
Yeah, this actually ended up being super devastating. The main base just wasn't under control fast enough, and he still doesn't have production with his gateways. He's no longer going to have those upgrades. His army is actually going to be significantly weaker as the Colossus do get taken down, and Dream brings it back to a tied score.
Really, really well done there, and I'm not going to question the medevac sitting there for a hot minute anymore. Zombie Guards, I feel like worked out perfectly, and like you said, he found like that really, really nice timing where there was like that attempted move out of the army, at least over toward the 4th base for SOS, and he just completely caught him out of position. Like he wasn't able to get enough there to defend the main base in nearly enough time.
I actually think that it was exactly him waiting for an even larger force to hit at 2 places at once. Like the one attack to in the main with like only 10 units attacking anywhere else would have been much easier for SOS to clean up. But as soon as SOS was like, oh, it's around that time that there'd be another big army somewhere, I have to make sure to split correctly. That's when the decision gets so much harder, right? Especially if you don't just literally see the entire map. If he had map hacks, then he probably actually splits perfectly, but he doesn't. So it's going to be difficult to have enough stalkers in the main and react appropriately when everything else is also potentially going to happen.
Yeah, definitely going to be problematic, but well, we're going to get to see now a game number 3 with these 2 players now tied up 1-1. I'm pretty excited about that, and Dream definitely punching back a bit. I feel like SOS, he's like that player that you always look at his wins, and sometimes, even though he's a very solid overall player, like he has very good control, he does a lot of things very well, sometimes you look at his wins and you're like, you kind of won by tricking your opponent. Like, how many times can you repeat that? But I do feel like actually both of these players have been showing some pretty just solid overall execution of their builds.
Yes. Yeah, we gotta, Blink. I mean, people out there are gonna be like, no, Blink Stalkers are really BS. And I'm gonna be like, well, but
those are the players that played Heart of the Swarm.
Yes, well, that is true. If you're going to put SOS versus Dream on heavy rain, then please complain. But no, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. So no, I think you're right. A lot of very solid games being shown from our Terran and our Protoss. And once again, they seemed evenly matched, right? No stomp out of nowhere for this best of 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And reminder that this is a qualifying match. So with this tournament format, the winner of this series is going to get one of those seeds into one of the groups that will start playing out starting tomorrow, I believe. So a really, really big deal for both of these guys. Neither one of them really want to drop down to the lower bracket and have to play off against, potentially like a Beyond or Euthermal or Armani or Hurricane. Like, not exactly something you want to do. So.
Get out of here nice and quick, man, and then let the other guy worry about actually making it out alive. Because you're right, the groups do start tomorrow. Even more Cashola, even more Prestige. It's going to be awesome. We're in a game number 3, Death Aura, the largest map in the map pool. In the top left for Team NV, he is once again SOS.
And down over here, on the bottom right-hand side of the map, we have the red Terran player from Good Game Gaming. He is Dream, who got cannon rushed by SOS on this map last time they played it.
Yes, that's right, yeah. I mean, he kind of defended, right? And then played out one of the longest games of their series.
You know what's funny? He did defend, and like he didn't lose a lot, but he had, I want to say, like 9 to 10 SCVs pulled for, I want to say, almost like 2 minutes. So, yeah, I feel like it was an even situation at the end.
Yeah. Well, I went ahead and let you fill the analysis of that segment because you are the cannon rushing expert on this panel. So
I do one thing, Zombie Grub, and I do it at a mediocre level. But God damn it, I'll own it.
Yes. Well, it's not going to be happening this time. As maybe SOS is just doing away with some of the very odd builds. I'm actually kind of disappointed if we didn't see at least one cannon rush or proxy void ray. You know, I feel like one of those has to pop up, but not this game. As Dream's also not doing anything too cheeky. He did proxy a starport in one of their games, so he is not without the ability to also be a little aggressive. But last game was the opposite of that. He went for a fast third CC, actually very, very greedy, which did definitely, we were talking about, the drops and what's happening like in front of us. The build that Dream got away with was also very good. Like, he was well set up to have a bajillion bio units to do a bunch of drops.
Yeah, and that's going to be something that SOS is going to want to find some ways to try and keep in check a bit. Now, he's going to open up with another one of these adept openings, just rallying them forward. He doesn't have like the gateways on the low ground like he did in the previous game, so it's not going to be the super fast adept rallied across the map, delay the command center for as long as possible. This is just going to be a kind of nice opening to get some early game information, kind of like I would say, game number 1.
Right, yeah. I mean, even less aggressive, like the least aggressive you may ever see SOS going for a follow-up sentry. This might be the frustration of last game, Once you figure out that your opponent went for a non-factory third CC, and the factory is one of the safest things you can get as a Terran, so just to like neglect it entirely is like, that's quite greedy, right? You see that as the Protoss, and in-game you're probably like, oh, son of a... fucking... and then you confirm it, after game. So... This, this hallucination that could pop out of the sentry is great in case it is, maybe a surprise 3 racks. Well, that's fantastic. If it's actually a third CC, then that's fantastic as well. To have that knowledge basically as fast as possible. If the Adept got into the main, that would be as fast as possible, but this is right behind that one.
Yeah. I'm curious, how do you feel doing like one of these quick sentries does play out against things like the Hellion drop? Because I know that one of the concerns sometimes with those Hellion drops is, well, I have units and my army beats your Hellions, but your Hellions just don't die fast enough. And sentries don't exactly do damage very quickly either.
No, they don't. They're even targetable by some of those units like Hellions, right? So, but then the good news is that this hallucination still scouts this. It can be like really frustrating to get that fast sentry, and then something like really, honestly, silly happens. Like a Beyond could actually send his Marines across a map and then be like, psych, I'm here already. And you're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then their sentry dies. It's absolutely useless. But as far as being like the one of like 4 units that you have against a Hellion drop, yeah, it can take away the firepower. But as long as you're scouting that it is in fact Hellions and that it is in fact a drop, then ideally just having correct placement on your units, preparation to pull the probes, right, should still be fine. It's going to be one of 5 units, Fear Dragon. There's 4 stalkers.
I know, this is pretty funny though. I think there was only 1 Hellion loaded up in the medevac. Okay, he's gonna unload that at the front door. I was thinking for a moment, like, is he gonna drop 1 Hellion in? Well, he's gonna be able to push the sentry back, forces out a force field, and remember, that is force field energy that could have been a hallucination for later, so does deny a little bit of scouting.
His first hallucination was pretty much good enough, honestly. So the second one, like, yeah, if you want to be super safe, could have happened if he didn't do anything. Then you're like scratching your head. But having the force field there is actually really great because we all know that if a Reaper's still alive, if that was only the Adept there, then it gets bopped out of the way. Or if the sentry didn't have energy, then it gets straight up killed, to be honest. So that sentry actually worked out in 2 ways. So nice little opening for SOS. He gets all of the intel. Dream still kind of working on the intel a little bit. He's seen that maybe it's a stalker-based composition, but he hasn't seen, for instance, the natural gases. So he doesn't know how, is this going straight into Colossus? Is this just a mass gateway, double forge? Yes, it is. He doesn't quite know that yet. So that's what he's got to be trying to pay attention to now.
Yeah, Medevac was maybe looking for an angle to try and move in. The Stalkers are very ready in that main base, but at least the Double Forge is going to get spotted out over here. And the Hellions, oh, well, I guess all of them will manage to unload in time, and maybe they'll get a couple of worker heals over here. Honestly, more than I thought they would already.
Yeah, 5's actually 6, 7, 7.
Ooh, wow.
There you go.
That's amazing. The Stalker, literally under the Stalkers, they unload, and he still managed to get a lot of damage done. Not bad.
Yeah, poor Protoss, man. You guys mostly have units that shoot a bit slow, and you don't have a lot of them either, so that's why it can work out. And that's actually is pretty good, right? Because that's 7 probes for the Hellions and the Reaper. Medevac actually lived. Feels maybe pretty nice for Dream.
Yeah, most definitely. I can go ahead and repair that back up, get some value out of it. Now, Husei Phoenix sees that there are a decent number of siege tanks now, so also starting to come on out. Siege tank actually loading up to the main base, so I guess Dream is maybe looking to get a bit more defensive there, I would imagine, as he's saying, okay, I got my 3rd. It's time to just keep it nice and safe over here against things like Blink Stalkers, which get a Marine, but lose a lot of hit points for it.
I think Dream, even with what seemed like a limited scout in the main, when you see a Double Forge, it pretty much only, I'm trying to think, like a Double Forge, like for instance a Colossus transition seems pretty greedy because the 3rd Nexus was also down and Dream had scouted that. So I feel like Dream took all the intel he had and was like, you know what, he could definitely come across the map with charge lots and Stalkers. Just Stalkers, 1 tank would have been fine. With the Zealots, very safe, very wise of him to put that tank on the high ground.
Yeah, well, Zealots starting to charge on forward, at least denying a bit of mining over here, but they're going to have a hard time finding another angle to move in, especially with those supply depots there. A decent split from SOS, does manage to only get a handful of his Zealots hit by the anti-armor missile, keeps most of his units safe. He's got a proxy gateway in the bottom left over here to reinforce if he wants to keep pumping out more units. And behind this, he will at least start getting up some additional tech, starting to move past just pure Forge, pure gateway upgrade units.
Still a very scary situation for Dream, since SOS still has a bit more of like the intimidating army, not necessarily because of it itself, but just the way it can surround. If you're over eager and not patient as a Terran, running into this type of army, you either hope Widowmines shoot well, or yeah, you don't get surrounded. So yeah, he's got to be patient. He's got to stay back. He knows that, and then it's gonna be difficult for Dream to determine exactly when he should move out. But eventually, I think with the EMPs, that's when he'll feel pretty safe.
Yeah, really like the additional walling of those supply depots over there for Dream. I know it's pretty standard and everything, but Mass Zealots caused him a little bit of headaches versus Haas earlier, and we can see that the Zealots not finding the best engagement over there at the choke point, but War Prism finding opportunity to drop a couple of Zealots out. I think that War Prism did get pushed back to the dead airspace. It is still alive for now, so we'll keep that available for later.
I gotta say, I really like Dream's setup. Like, that was such a scary moment there. 2-2 kicked in for, or well, +2 armor kicked in anyways. And then Dream had the main base with the War Prism. You know, a lot of Terrans, even professional Terrans, immediately get flustered because they've already like maybe misread the situation, are trying to get their bearings and then mess up even further. But he not only dealt with the main, you know, was paying attention to the front, but he even has a little bit of Sim City with his 4th CC, making a bit more of a choke into that natural with a Liberator over it. So it's it was quite safe against any type of multi-pronged attack. It was really nice.
Yeah, very, very nicely done. And I think what is going to maybe end up being a bit of a challenge is actually establishing the 4th base. Now, we're going to see SOS try and move his way up this ramp, and he's going to go ahead and blink forward, but very, very far away from being able to snipe off things like the Liberators. The storms are coming on out, but that first storm not exactly landing where he wants to. It's more just going to zone things out, and I guess this is still kind of a win for SOS. He's denying the 4th base, which is what his original goal was, I think.
Yeah, it's actually getting a little bit tricky. We'll talk about it in a second. Widowmine drop coming in here. SOS is paying attention, so no devastating amounts of damage there. I was a little bit scared for SOS because he almost walked into EMPs and 4 Widowmines, but he backed away just in time, so his army's still intact. But back to, like, you know, why it's like it's actually kind of iffy for SOS is that the EMP now is effective against basically everything SOS has, right? And then that's kind of the trouble of immediately following up a mass gateway army with High Templars, is that you're like, well, I got charge lots, da 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 da, and then High Templars come in, but then EMPs take away both of their power. So if Dream was feeling like he wanted to push out, take an engagement, he maybe could. And then SOS would be like, man, I wish I had waited for Colossus or Disruptors, for instance, which are going to make his army good, even great, once again.
Yeah, and with that second Robo and the Robo Bay coming on up, I think he is thinking about exactly going into that. And I guess maybe the one bright side here, because I agree, the army for Dream is looking really, really scary versus what SOS has. But I guess if you want to move out, you do have to move through this massive wide open spaces against, you know, like 35 charge lots. So maybe that's what he's hoping for. And looks like that's actually what he's going to be trying to go for over here. But the Widow Mines, oh my God, that split the last second, saved his bacon.
Yeah, I think we were both looking at that one, man. Good storm as well, and a lot of very injured units. Unfortunately, the War Prison is pushed away. The High Templars are out of juice, and Dream, if he could just get a couple more EMPs, well, honestly, if he could wait for his army to be healed. Right now, a problem is not having enough medevacs. Then he maybe could have tried to initiate another engagement, but he's got to wait for that healing.
Oh man, this is so funny too. SOS's army is like 70% Zealot right now. He's just continuing to batter on away. He is going to find an odd angle over here where he dives in with a lot of these Zealots into the natural, not quite getting a lot done, and not even that many units actually getting pulled back either. I'm not sure that one panned out exactly how SOS wanted, and he's definitely down a bit of supply now.
Yeah, now he's kind of hoping and depending on these disruptors, which we all know, are powerful, especially to get like 6+. But when you're still building your army, when you're still getting to disruptors, it's one of the scariest moments for a Protoss. And even some Liberator harassment looking to finally get Dream some kills. He's been all defensive for the last like 7 minutes. But I gotta say, I think the analyst desk brought up that like Haas is the best practice Dream could have had to face SOS. I actually think that's quite true. This mass charge lot thing. Seems like Dream actually had such a perfect read on it. He knew when to be cautious, he knew when to try and move out, and the cautious defensive plays really worked.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you, you lose one game where you're on 3 bases locked down versus like 60 charge lots repeatedly moving into you, and you're taking far better trades, but you kind of just gradually get whittled down. I think that leaves a mark. And oh my God, that disruptor shot's gonna leave a mark. Looks like this will eventually be a defense over here for SOS, but yeah, man, I am starting to get a little bit worried over here for Dream because, his army was rounding out really, really well. He was managing to make all these great holds and everything, but I have to say, we have SOS now on what, 6 or 5 bases?
Yeah, 5 bases. He certainly can afford to make a lot of Zealots, and as long as his disruptors don't start getting picked off because he's not paying attention, then he should be fine. But this type of engagement actually going okay for Dream. The Zealots were without shields, so the bio actually pushes through. Disruptors all shooting at once is very dangerous. One does get a pretty good shot, but the pickup actually saves, 70% of that army?
Yeah, and it looks like Dream's going to continue to just try and poke in from 2 different sides, and it is difficult for Dream to just try and micro back and forth on both of those fronts at the same time. So he is actually going to join up his army on the right-hand side saying, well, you know what? All your disruptors are over there in that bottom left-hand location. So if I just hit you all on the top side, you're actually not going to have as much over there to actually defend. And at the exact same moment, SOS actually rejoins his army in the center, and maybe actually a little bit out of position now for this.
This is what's really tough about having disruptors as your go-to, is that, splitting them is making it very difficult to actually get good connections. To pay attention to both engagements at once for SOS can be difficult. And then just having enough things to protect the disruptors, they're not focused fire down, is also a difficult call for the Protoss to make. So far as SOS is able to recover, he was at one point down, 30, 40 to army supply. Now he's at least closer, but this entire army of Dream actually goes for the snipe, but the disruptor finds that one snipe. The second snipe, okay, not quite happening, but it might not matter. Dream has so much army left over.
Yeah, even going to be able to depower one of the Colossus being produced over there from that other Robo. The Stalker counterattack, not quite getting enough damage done and not even really able to kill that Planetary Fortress. It's still alive, and he's still struggling to defend. Dream going to be able to take game number 3 and brings them up in the series at long last. 2-1 so far.
I think that was the best example so far of Dream being wary of Protoss trickery, actually. We're talking about Gamma Rushes and Void Rays, but that mass charge lot double upgrade style, that is so tricky because, you feel like they can be all-inning you, that is to say they're not advancing their technology and getting to splash for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 8 minutes, like some Protosses, right? They just make 100 Zealots off 100 probes. And Dream actually was able to identify that and respond very appropriately. I really liked that game from Terran.
Absolutely love it, and love to see players kind of adjusting and learning across different days. But guys, we're going to go to a short break before we resume the remainder of this series with Dream leading up 2-1. Will he close it out in Game 4, or will we go to a Game 5? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to get ready to move back into game number 4 of this really awesome PvT so far between SOS and Dream. My name is Fear Dragon, still here with Zombie Grub. How are you feeling about this series so far, Jess?
So far, I'm a little more impressed with Team, and that's not just my Terran heart talking. It's SOS winning that one game off of the Blink Stalker kind of, build / counterattack. Felt not like a build order win, but just it was too abrupt. It was too based off of what the decisions were made before the game even started type situation. The next 2 games that Dream wins, I don't know. I just feel like it's very strong macro decision making, which gives me a little more confidence for this guy who spawns in the bottom left of Pillars of Gold to actually take the series. He is the Red Terran for GGG Dream.
And up here in the top right-hand side of the map, Mr. $0 he is from Team NV, SOS.
Here, Dragon, what do you think, series?
I'm really happy that you said exactly what you said, because that's exactly how I feel. I feel like right now, SOS had like a good start, like that solid game one where like, yeah, cool, I got a nice quick one in, because just executed everything really well, hit with the blink stalkers, microed well, and kind of killed him really quickly, like you said. But then after that, Dream has just felt like he's been able to adapt and change everything he was doing yesterday, and even just a little bit in game one maybe, to really just handle everything that SOS has been throwing at him for the most part. I will say, I think SOS did look like he was maybe getting into some decent positions in that last game, until, you know, things kind of carried out later and Dream's defense just started getting better and better. But yeah, I do like the momentum right now for Dream.
Yeah, I think it is important to point out two things in fairness for SOS. That second game where Dream went for a fast 3cc isn't a, you know, bop, haha, gotcha, I had units, you didn't. But it is still kind of in a way like it's you know, decisions based before the game even quite starts, that SOS wouldn't be able to scout too easily. That kind of got him, right? There's going to be a very big economic focus for Dream that he didn't match up to, and then it gave him a lot more units, so it was going to be difficult. Okay, we got something going, so I'll just make my second point really quick. And the second point, yeah, absolutely, is that third game, it wasn't like he was playing super poorly. It wasn't like SOS was like, I do the build, I execute, hello? He actually also was trying to read the situation correctly and take engagements when he could, if he could, and then not do so if it wasn't possible, and transition when he thought it was necessary. So I do want to point out that SOS was also playing as strong of a game as he could, but now let's talk about the build.
Yep, we got a proxy Stargate. Now, this isn't like the hyper fast rush for the proxy Stargate. Don't get any gateway units. I'm just going to make shield batteries immediately. You're natural and kill you. This is definitely going to be a lot more delayed. So this, I feel like usually this is going to be like the positioning and stuff for an Oracle, right?
Yes, yeah, almost surely. And then on the Terran side of things, so funnily enough, I mentioned the 3-racks potential last game when we were talking about the Sentry hallucination, and hey, we got the 3-racks and Pillars of Gold, which, you know, if he moved out, you know, kind of as fast as possible, he could actually bop an Adept Sentry opener, and exactly what I said last game, the hey, units, what's up? That someone like Ben might be able to do. But he knows it's not a Sentry follow-up. He sees the second Adept, so that kind of takes that out of the equation. And hopefully for Dream, he is thinking, well, Adepts can't be paired up with a proxy, because if he doesn't think about it, his Marines won't be in position, not very easy to clean up the Oracle. It could actually do a ton of damage. Oh.
Yeah, it might put him into a position where he has to do a lot more damage on the other side of that map with this 3-racks than he otherwise may have wanted to. But Oracle comes running on in, and the Marines are already a little bit out of position, like you were saying. So a couple SCVs going to start falling over here. Decent number of Marines do manage to pop on out in that main base, thanks to, you know, 3 barracks worth of production. So able to push that back without losing too much. And I think he did manage to kill one of the Adepts there. Oh,
yeah, that actually, I was like, maybe the Oracle can get in and actually kill even 5 or 6 SCVs, which is far more than any Oracle has done, Legacy of the Void usually. But the situation actually worked out that way. Dream just had barely enough. SOS didn't glide immediately into the main, because you got to be aware of like maybe a Widow Mine with a fast factory. But now SOS knows he's up against the 3-racks, which... yeah, if you only need, 4 Marines, right, for an Oracle nowadays to defend it if they're all in position of firing immediately. And then the rest of the army is still going to have that sim, still going to have that combat shields, and still going to have a fair amount of fighting power. So, you know, the 2 Oracles on this side of the map don't necessarily help with the defense. And that's why I'm worried, but, yeah, I think SOS will be fine. As long as they get a shield battery, right? That solves everything.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to be definitely a lot of the hope over here, because even the Oracle energy, it's not going to be used for helping out with DPS, which I think those Oracles don't usually survive very long, but even like a stasis trap or something to delay things a little bit, none of that is really going to be utilized over here. SOS is just saying, I got enough with the high ground. That is going to be my key to victory over here with this defense, but yeah, with Stim and Comet Shields now finished up, it looks like the Oracles are maybe going to be able to try and keep some tabs on the Marines to see where they are, and they're actually not very far out on the map right now.
You know, Dream's actually really just sharking around, looking for fear, I feel more so than anything else. I think he knows it's one of those kind of weird things where if the Oracle's for some reason never scouted, like which is impossible, let's just say, then the 3 racks maybe bops SOS. He doesn't have very many units. You know, he doesn't have a shield battery prepared. But because the Oracles do scout as part of the opener, you know, there is going to be a shield battery. There are going to be warp ins. So Dream, figuring that SOS would be prepared, just instead keeps all of his army together. And that still gives him a very powerful, large bio army, but with not any of the technology you would have seen from the previous games.
Yeah, hey, it's going to continue to kind of move around the map over here and maybe finally find the Stargate, so he'll get to depower that. I guess always nice if you can have that Stargate still powered and make like a Phoenix later on if there's like Liberator routes or something. But oh wow, Oracle's even finding I was going to say a few Marines, but also finding their death.
Yeah, it's like the weak one was really well controlled, but the other one didn't expect more Marines. This is getting a couple of extra stims even. I think some of the Marines had already seen once. So, and the medevacs aren't out. So SOS knows he's still not really gonna have to worry about any attack, because certainly with the 3 racks, if you're not paying attention to where the army is, they can attack as soon as stim is done. They can attack right before medevacs appear, or they can just wait for the medevacs and even do a drop. So the Oracle is being corralled, Oracle singular being corralled here in the top left's not great. But the Observer goes to the middle of the map, and that'll tell SOS hopefully what he needs to know.
Yeah, and SOS has got that 3rd base now set up and established. He has his first Colossus about to pop on out, and a couple of his upgrades are also on the way. So even though we see that Dream is going for this move out over here, I do wonder how much damage he's going to be able to get done. The timing and the angle that he hits at is going to be so important, I feel like, because even just a few extra seconds of delay, and I feel like that extra warp in +1 weapons finishing over here for SOS is going to make it a lot easier for him to potentially defend.
You're definitely right about that. Absolutely. Like the 2 shield batteries and overcharge is like, you know, what he's kind of hoping onto right now. He's like, please don't attack, please don't attack. But as soon as that +1's done, extend them to a second Colossus, I think more so than anything else, right? Then he feels a little confident. Yeah, that is a good find. And there's not really much SOS can do about it, honestly.
Yeah, just got to remake your Cyber Core elsewhere and accept the losses. But hey, at the end of the day, like you were saying, this was a little bit of a scary moment there for SOS, because if the army did just kind of charge and barrel on forward at the right angle, and SOS's army was split up between the 3rd and the main, yeah, I don't know that SOS actually survives that. So I feel like SOS did kind of get away with it.
Yeah, it's certainly a scary moment. But Dream actually even realizing he's not going to get any victories from that, pulls back again, gets his 3rd CC set up. If we look at the work account, it's not really that great for the Protoss. So there was a lot of fear here, I think, from SOS. You know, he's constantly keeping tabs on his opponent, constantly deciding when are you going to attack me. I have to be prepared for everything. So that's, you know, shield battery to the natural, 2 shield battery to the 3rd, chronoing out things that aren't probes, that type of stuff, right? So only 1 SCV down. That's Dream should be feeling comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with that 2-1 lead, because if he's able to turn this minor little, I would say, lead into a victory, it's going to be really nice for him to close up that series there. But for now, we do have already a pretty quick tech up into the Templar Archives, just on those 3 bases over here for SOS. So not looking to try and say like, oh, let me like go back and do a lot of that pro production, let me get up a 4th Nexus and stuff immediately. It does seem like he is looking to try and take one now, but we'll have to be in position for the left-hand side attack coming forward.
He's got an observer over it, yeah, so he is getting ready. And his army's good enough that it is willing to keep capable of taking this army on. In fact, SOS's army has grown larger. So he's very capable, and with charge done, +2 is about 30 seconds away. Dream has split up his army. He actually scanned, thinking an observer or the army could be up there, actually misses it, but a zealot, oh nice, a zealot scout to the right side. And Dream's gonna set up for some multitasking, multi-pronged harassment. It's not working so far, but maybe finally finds an opening.
Yeah, a couple of zealots are getting warped in over there, but the army was a bit further south, so finds a few of those buildings. Doesn't really get a whole lot of damage done there, but even picks up in the medevacs and immediately escapes, expecting that the whole army is going to be there in a second. But even this drop on the south side, it may be able to find a little bit if it went to like the main base. But there's even an Oracle that's actually just patrolling around that area that could tag it with a Revelation, would give a little bit of advance notice, and actually, yeah, there's a Revelation. Spots out a single Marine.
Very good use of that weak Oracle. Both of them just getting to their best possible armies. I'm a little surprised, though, that SOS does not go into any Immortal or Disruptor production. He is building up to, I believe it's a 4th Colossus, where a lot of Protosses are stopping at 3. So that could be a bit of a surprise. You know, Terrans only expect 3, honestly, these days. We might not have enough Vikings, or might not have the Vikings properly positioned. 4 Colossus actually finding you into a tight spot can be very devastating. That's the 5th Colossus. My bad.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Yep.
Yeah. Well, the Viking count is, I mean, not exactly super high right now, especially for 5 Colossus going to be involved in this fight. And, well, yeah, there's going to be more Colossus than Vikings, Zombie Grub. That's actually, like, potentially going to be a big game changer over there, especially with a decent number of Zealots to help support and buffer. Then your opponent's Ghosts, the Marines, the Marauders, they all just get absolutely massacred.
Yeah, that's not a good sign, man. I mean, a lot of the anti-Colossus play is just having a concave and a lot of Marauders a lot of the time. That's not what Dream has. Dream actually still has a large Marine army from the early game. The fight is happening. I think Dream now realizes his opponent's composition, mostly charge lot Colossus, and it's going to be scary. All the charge lots go into the natural. Okay, that's a decision.
Well, I guess when you have this many Colossus, you can say, yeah, you can't really move down the ramp easily. Yes, your 2 Vikings will eventually kill the Colossus, but my Zealots are going to kill your entire natural and a lot of the units coming out of your main.
I mean, they actually get choked up, EMP'd. I mean, so it's going to be held, surprisingly enough. Dream handling, I think, this like abrupt situation. Suddenly, the Protoss army was there. Suddenly, it was 4 Colossus. Actually, quite well. 21 SCV still go down. At least a little bit of revenge with this Widowmine drop. Going to find 5, maybe upwards to 10. But SOS is still looking for that engagement.
Yeah, really teasing for it, but it is a bit awkward, right? Because you're trying to get a gauge also with these Zealot run-bys over the main base. You're like, okay, did he send enough down over there that I could maybe try and push up that ramp instead? But you still have to worry about the siege tanks up on the high ground that are dealing damage. It's a really, really tough place to try and commit into, but maybe he just feels comfortable with it. Maybe he feels like he's still just getting value from poking.
I was going to say, Dream's army has actually gotten, kind of better than it was 30 seconds ago. How many Marauders, how split his army had become instead of just all in one location. And those Widowmines actually weren't cleaned up, so getting even more probe kills. SOS, I think
oh
he's
boy,
back up.
Yeah, he's down to 55 workers, and it's all well and good that you're on 5 bases, but when you can only saturate about 10 workers per base, that's not exactly the ideal economy over here. He's going to try and go for these rocks, knock down another area for a lot of these Zealots he's been warping in to try and charge forward. Those Colossus looking a little bit exposed, and, okay, as I say that, I get proven wrong immediately by the Colossus swipes.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those situations where they're protecting each other, There's a lot of DPS. SOS is still going to go for it. +3 had finished for him recently, but look at those EMPs. All of the shields stripped away from about 50% of that army. And SOS is like, okay, I guess that wasn't it either.
Yeah, having that Oracle live is going to be really nice. Tags the army with a revelation, actually, and is going to be able to keep an eye on it, see the positioning, and maybe allow himself to get back into a nice spot to try and put some pressure on this. But I guess the sensor tower, well, it was detecting this army, so it makes it a little bit harder to find too much more damage.
I mean, this angle is obviously even harder than the other one because the planetary is prepared, so I don't know if SOS is actually going to be able to crack Dream. The upgrade's also not as one-sided as they appear to that +3. It's actually only +2 on the way just now for the armor for SOS. There's Dream. Well, he's inching closer to the +3 attack. There's the engagement again into the 3rd base. EMP's going down, not as fast as they could have been, but still demolishing the Archons. No Zealots in sight, and the Stalkers desperately trying to flee.
A lot of Marauders over here also tanking a ton of those Colossus shots. Even the Colossus surviving in the back. One of the Colossus goes down. A second Colossus very low on hit points. 8 gets target fired down, and so does the War Prism. SOS plummeting in supply to less than half that of Dream. And Dream is going to secure that 3-1 victory, and he will be moving